I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Adirondack Central School public hearing, Boonville Elementary at 7:06. Please join with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just so everyone is aware of the format, we are starting out with the public hearing tonight where Mr. Roberts is going to be talking about the district safety plan, and then we'll have a brief update on the reopening plan for Adirondack. And so everyone knows there will be a short adjournment to go into executive session for a couple of personnel items. When we come back, we'll go right into our regular meeting. So at this time, I'd like to have Mr. Roberts.
Just wanted to go over our district safety plan, overview everything. With our district safety plan, what we have, it's really a general culmination of everything we have in our building safety plans. And each one of our schools has an individual building safety plan that's unique to its own building. Each building safety plan identifies each one of its building safety team members in each building. It's in addition to each building safety team, we also comprise of a district building safety committee as well. So now the building safety teams meet 4 to 5 times a year. The district safety team meets, because they run it, it's 5 times a year. So we do meet typically about every other month throughout the school year. Now our plans, the district plan is a little bit more general. That's what we post on the website. The building plans are far more specific. The building plans, because they're more intricate and specific, those are the ones that get sent on to the state education department. Because they're sent on to the state education department, they're filtered on directly to the New York State Police. They get a copy of them. I send a copy directly to the United County Sheriffs. They also get a copy. All the building principals get copies of them as well. Our director of transportation, director of facilities, superintendent, etc. They all get copies of building plans, and we go over them. Obviously, the safety committees as well. So what's in these? There's the organizational charts. There's assignments and responsibilities, and so in addition to that, there's like a whole flow chart and everything of the responsibilities and what the assignments are with everybody. There's trainings and drills listed in there. There's like the roles of staff and students and whatnot. So at the beginning of the year, when we start off the school year, those are some of the things we go over with the teachers, the staff. What's the role of the assistants, during the school year? What are the role of the teachers? And, we hold some of the meetings with even the students during the year. They give us the feedback at the end of the year. We ask for some of their feedback on what would be improved when we talk about safety and the drills and things like that. One of their big concerns was, trying to do it in a little more orderly fashion, and so that's what we tried to instill into some of our drills more. Evacuations and lockdowns, we do 12 of those, 8 in the fall and 4 in the spring. We do 2 blocked entrances in the fall as well, and then 2 in the spring as well. We're not exempt from any of the evacuations or lockdowns, but the guidance we've been given this year is we're still supposed to be practicing social distancing, even during the lockdown. So we've talked as administrators about that, and we're gonna go ahead and do that even in the lockdowns, but we're gonna just have the teachers kind of walk through the students. If we are going to social distance a little in the classrooms, we're going to just walk them through. If this was a real case scenario, we probably would be huddled together in, various spots in the room or something like that. But they'd like us to social. That was the guidance we were given from the state anyway, to still continue with the evacuations and lockdowns, but to social distance. That was the only other variance we were given. We wanted to add more of a mental health component, so what we did is we started this school year, we'll start threat assessment teams in each building. It was something that counselors, we discussed this past year about starting up, where teams would be working together. It was one of the areas that some schools last summer went through an audit. We weren't one of them, but some in central New York, and they got cited for some different things, and one of them was not just mental health, but coming up with solidifying plans for procedures and how would you respond to students in crisis and whatnot. So they wanted more of a solidified plan. So that's what we started having discussions with this year, how we could go about that. So we talked about in each building coming up with just a more formalized process where you have the building administrator, you have a social worker, guidance counselor, not an SRO, but maybe the SPO, depending on the circumstance, might be involved in the situation. But meet on a regular basis, whether it's every couple of weeks or whatnot. I wasn't going to set a specific timeline. I think in the high school, we're probably going to meet every 2 weeks, but elementary level, that's going to be a building level decision depending on, what the issues you have going on. Maybe they might meet monthly or whatever, but I think the point is that we want to meet on a regular basis to tackle some of these issues. And the guidance is how you respond to the issues, and that's great because we have developed some protocols how to respond to them. But hopefully, as you get into more regular discussions, we're going to come into some more proactive strategies and how to help these students out before it becomes just a reactive measure. There's also communication and contacts that are listed in here. So there's contacts for every administrator in there. There's contacts for every police agency in there. There's highly organized communication flow chart as well, once you get into, because then you start talking about reunification setups, because each building has their own reunification plan. Like if you did have to evacuate the actual campus or the building you're at, so each one has their own. The only one that's probably a little similar is high school, middle school, because we're on the same campus, but that's the only one that's similar. Everybody else has a unique one. But there's a lot that goes into the reunification plan, because not only just the planning, but there's the communication aspect. You got to get everybody working on the same page, because all the roles have to be defined ahead of time, making sure everybody understands what's going on, because there's a lot of things happening at the same time that are going to be coming together. So, I mean, you've got transportation, you've got the extra staff that are going to be in the school that might not be assigned to a classroom are going to have different roles. When you get to another site, these might be folks that are going to be helping out, directing parents or greeters or other things. And we've got reunification cards once parents come to get the kids. So there's a lot that goes into it. So there's a lot of pre-planning. So every year, as you know, there's different staff that become available and whatnot that might have different schedules. Those roles change, so every year that's constantly updated. There's emergency response teams that's identified in each one of those building plans, and the nurses typically update those and also do drills with the emergency response teams in every building. And then there's threats and hazards that are identified in each one of the plans. And there are blueprints and floor plans in each of the buildings, and those are sent to the state as well. So they have copies. That in a nutshell is really what's kind of identified in the building plans. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Or anything I can clarify or get back to?
Yep, I got a couple questions. On page 5, there's it talks about the chain of command, and there's phone numbers. Those are office phone numbers.
Yeah.
So the question is, I mean, this could happen any hour of the day. The chances of Cameron being in his office when something happens, he's second in command, is probably not likely. So with our voice over IP system, you can forward calls. So if they call Cameron's office and
Yeah, so, yeah, and so this is in our district plan, and our building plans, we have all of our cell numbers are listed that are with the state agencies and everything.
so what's the intention of this plan?
This is the one where by law have to post publicly on our website.
Okay, so this isn't really a working document then?
It is, it's for the general public to view. We cannot disclose everything we can in the building plan, in the
Okay.
district plan, we have to post publicly. That's the only thing, that's the only.
I would just say then, if this is gonna be a meaningful document, we ought to have a contact information that is suitable for 24 hours a day. Because these incidents could happen 24 hours.
Cameron does have, his is forwarded to a cell phone.
It is.
His definitely is.
So that's something that, you know, could
His
be.
always is, yeah.
Could be a consideration for others as well. you know.
Yep, his is forwarded.
The next, not really a question, but a comment.
Sure.
On page 7, we refer to MSDS sheets.
Yeah,
MSDS sheets are obsolete.
they're,
They've been replaced by SDS sheets.
it's correct.
Yeah.
I talked to Mr. Teach, I think. So they still exist, there's a new name though.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so I would just refer to them as SDS sheets.
But they are valid, but they're another name, and I can update the name.
Yeah, if you could just change, that's more of a
But I did-
formality. They're just called safety data sheets now.
Yes. And I just talked to him the other day about that. Thank you.
You're
But I just wanted, because that was a question that came up. Ms. Ingers, she had a similar question somewhere around the area, and that's how it came up, and I was asking Mr. Chichak about it. Thank you. I'll update that.
And then on page 9, we get into the duties of the police SWAT supervisor, duties of the fire commander, duties of the EMS commanders. So my question is, do we define them, or do they define them? So in other words, do we establish the protocols for them, or do they establish the protocols for us? And the reason I ask that is, because I know you mentioned we send this document to the state and then the emergency response teams as well. So it would seem to me that the Oneida County Sheriff's Office or the state police have a protocol that they follow.
Yeah.
So if there's 40 school districts in Oneida County that all have different protocols, it would seem that they would want to establish a protocol. So again, my question is really, do we establish the protocol for Adirondack, or does the fire department establish a protocol for us? Or does the state police establish a protocol for us?
What I was told is this document, and I could try and verify or double check, this document was written or in conjunction with the New York State Police back in like 2014 or something, like it was 15 or something.
Yeah.
But I can double check because I think it was written either with or by the New York State Police of the language, but I can double check that.
Yeah, and I think the state
Yeah.
police are one organization, I think the local ambulance crew is another organization. So maybe just as an opportunity for improvement is just see what, if those agencies have protocols that we should really be following their protocols. Or just referring to the protocol that will be used for the duty of the police watch supervisor will be established by the New York State Police. So if they determine they're gonna change it in December, right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
I'm trying to understand, like, to ask another agency,
No, so,
or ask the New York State Police?
well, whoever the responding police departments are gonna be, if the, maybe ask the state police, maybe
I
ask
think
the
the
sheriff's
state
department.
police would be the overall. Okay.
But the idea is that, you know, if you're looking at this document, and this is what our expectations of them are gonna be, and they say, that's not how we're gonna handle it, we have our protocols.
Which may have been changed 2 years ago.
And
It
that's-
maybe is changed every 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I can do that, sure.
And then the last one I had was on page 15. It talks about, if the emergency situation dictates emergency evacuation or early dismissal of students and staff, normal bus driver assignments and routes will be suspended to the superintendent. The transportation supervisor will maintain a current list of regular substitute bus drivers. An up-to-date file of bus routes, student bus lists, and an updated copy of the emergency. And then members of the transportation staff will be oriented to the emergency evacuation plan by the transportation supervisor. So it talks about if something like this were to happen, we're gonna reach out and call every bus driver, every substitute bus driver. So my question is are these contact lists programmed into our phone into our phone system for rapid distribution? So in other words, Ed, you can make a decision that you're gonna have a snow day, and my phone can be ringing in 5 minutes, right? Do we have that ability for all these different scenarios so that we can reach out to every substitute, every bus driver, and with a voicemail message, they're getting a call, as opposed to thumbing through a contact list and dialing each individual phone number?
Yes,
We do have that ability?
we can do that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because transportation has talked in the past about snow days, when we get up and we're talking in the morning. Some of the bus drivers are there, let's say 5:30, and sometimes our decision, depending on the weather and what's coming in and out, might not be till 5:30, so they're already there, so they were thinking, call those early drivers, the same thing, here's a list of those individuals, and that phone message would go to them before the school message that I send.
Perfect. Perfect, okay.
Okay, to add to that a little bit, so if something were to happen here, is there a way to contact every parent on this list that you already have, the numbers you already have, within, 10, 15 minutes, that there's a lockdown at the school, don't be alarmed or whatever? Is that possible? Is that in place now?
Yes, yep, we
It
just
is.
go, when we go through the calling, there's a menu,
Yeah.
and whatever button I push, we're like, all students, all staff, all students and staff. And
Okay, so
you-
it is already set up?
Yeah. You can select by building, you can select by district. And a lot of times Michelle will go in and fine tune. Sometimes when there's a special message, it comes across different because she does something on her end that comes to me that I can't do on my phone. So sometimes we do that sort of message that I can't do sitting at my desk on that phone, but she does something on her end and then it comes to me. And so sometimes we can do that also.
Do we ever do a test? I mean, do you ever do anything and say, this is a test, we're just checking to see if it gets to the other end correctly? Has a test ever been done?
I don't know
No,
if it's
because we
done.
use it, like, we just used it on the survey. We use it all the time. We
What's
just
that,
we just
school
used it
messenger?
twice,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
School
you
messenger,
have-
we do it all the
okay.
time.
See, I don't get that, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, we use it all the time.
Reports who is gone.
Do we have to
Yes.
sign up for school messenger through you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can sign you up for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
that
not
would be
on
nice.
it
In
either.
the middle of the night and the phone
That's
rings.
what you really
Right,
want.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping anyway.
This is superintendent admin. Oh, mother.
I like, yeah. I had some kids mocking me, like, Jones, he's got me right down pat, you know. He tells me about not closing school, so, yeah, he mimics me a little bit.
Thank you, thanks.
Yeah, and in addition, on the district plan, I just want to, on page 6, I updated one of the contacts listed that county sheriffs I put into the district plan as well. Thank you, everyone.
Are you set?
No. Now, anything that's COVID specific is not necessarily in that document.
This, no, the only thing,
That's-
COVID was like the lockdowns and evacuation.
Those are-
Just gave us guidance to really social distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dan?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Niznik.
Do you have to close it?
Yeah, we have to close.
Okay, I'd love to. Move to close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Second? All in favor?
Bye.
Opposed? Carried. Now we will have the presentation, the reopening.
Seems weird though, not seeing something here.
It's okay. Keep going.
Okay, so I'll look at my bifocals here. Good evening. I wanted to give an update about our reopening plan
Hang on
and
1 second.
talk. Staff will be provided with cloth masks. We also have additional face masks available should anyone need them. Some of the training includes hand washing, effective use of face masks, how to clean and sanitize surfaces, COVID-19 symptoms, personal protective equipment for staff and students, including masks. And accommodation for high-risk population will be addressed on a case-by-case basis and may require a physician's note. Please contact your building administrator to address these specific situations. And continuing and focusing on health and safety, Parent Square, a safe school-to-home communication app that allows two-way communication between teachers and families, will be used throughout this school year. This is something new for Adirondack, the Parent Square app. We are working with our vendors now, and that's actually taking place as we speak. We'll conduct daily COVID screening via a 4 to 5 questionnaire that will be submitted through Parent Square. A reminder for symptoms to be aware of for your child when they appear to be sick. As a secondary measure, we'll also be checking temperatures at school. However, as the guidance states, the first line of defense is checking temperatures before students leave from home. So daily screening at home, take your child's temperature, submit screening via Parent Square before a child goes to school. Or a paper copy may be requested from the school office. So in case you're having the internet connection issues, we do have a form that would be sent home to parents as the first measure of students coming to school. And then a reminder, do not send students, your children, to school in some of the guidelines for COVID. Fever greater than 100 degrees, cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle, body aches, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. And again, the second layer of safety will be the screening for all students and visitors with their temperatures checked upon arrival at school, and also the questionnaire for those individuals. And the same for staff, who will also have access to Parent Square, and they would submit the 4 questions related to the COVID questions that you've probably heard or seen or people have asked you, and whether or not they've had a fever of 100 degrees or greater. Questions that probably look familiar to you. We will conduct daily COVID-19 screening via a 4 to 5 questionnaire that will be submitted through Parent Square. And information, like I said, is happening now as we introduce this new app, which will be a really good secondary layer of communication between home and school. So some of the screening questions that will be on the app for people to respond to. And sometimes people say this verbally if you're in a situation, or they have you fill out the paper. So something to become familiar with. Have you knowingly been in a close or proximate contact over the last 14 with anyone who has tested positive through a diagnostic test for COVID-19 or exhibited symptoms? Have you tested positive through a diagnostic test for COVID-19? Have you experienced any symptoms of COVID-19, including a temperature greater than 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 14 days? Have you traveled internationally or from a state with a widespread community transmission of COVID-19 per the New York State advisory in the past 14 days? And that list, as you know, gets updated frequently. And then the final question, ultimately, do you have a temperature of 100 degrees or greater? So that is something that will be familiar with everyone during the school year, and pretty much wherever you go, out in public or in other places. On our website, we'll provide additional information about the COVID-19 process and sickness. So this week on our website, we're going to have an updated list. When the governor decided that schools could reopen, there was 3 more things that he wanted us to extract from plans or add to. So that information will be on the website by Friday. And so that will give you a little bit more rundown in regards to symptoms. What if someone has COVID symptoms? They report to the nurse for assessment. Parent or guardian will be contacted, and symptomatic students will be sent home. And then there's a flow chart, and also will be a little bit more detailed information on our website for you to review. What if someone at school tests positive? Department of Health will call the school to notify us, and the Department of Health will also direct the district on how to proceed. When someone is tested positive, when do they come back? The district will follow guidelines from Department of Health, and there's a certain amount of days that a staff or student needs to be out of school. And that would be represented on the next chart. This chart represents if an individual screens positive. In the box at the bottom, this means the following. So on the last slide, I read you the 4 questions that are typically asked. So if you looked at the chart, if a student screens positive, and what that means is they've answered yes to one of those questions. Okay, so if you look at the right of that chart, student does not see a provider. So they've got what seems to appear to test positive for the screening aspect. If they do not see a provider, student may return 10 days since symptoms began, and student has been fever-free for 3 days without the use of fever-reducing medication, And it has been 3 days since student symptoms began, including cough and shortness of breath. On the left side of that flow chart, when a student is positive to one of those screening measures, the student sees the provider, and then what happens? Well, the student tests positive for COVID-19, so what happens? The student may return, follow Department of Health guidance, which may include 10 days since symptoms began, student has been fever-free for 3 days without use of fever-reducing medication, and it's been 3 days since student symptoms began, including cough and shortness of breath. If the student tests negative for COVID-19 per MD note or testing, student may return. Student has been fever-free for 24 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication, and provider note is given to the nurse. So in that flow chart, it tells you if the person sees the provider or doesn't see the provider, and when they would be able to come back to school. And again, that information will be detailed on our website in a separate document from the reopening plan. There was 3 assurances that were added last Friday. In regards to facility maintenance, one of the other topics in the reopening, as mentioned, the district will be cleaning our buildings throughout the day and at night. Detailed attention will be focused on high-touch frequency areas. Our filtration system meets the requirements for air, and we will continue to monitor this every day. The district has an enhanced detailed cleaning schedule. I think is this line? With special attention to frequently touched areas such as door handles, railings, drinking coolers, hand washing, and faucets. And in regards to the drinking fountains, if they are not the bottled water fillers, they would be offline. But most all of our water fountains in the schools are bottle fillers, and if they're not, we are replacing them. So I think we're down to just a couple that are not the bottle fillers, so we wouldn't have to worry about that. Air filtration, the code required 10% outside air be maintained, and we do that, and we'll exceed it whenever possible. And plastic barriers, any use of plastic separators would comply with the 2020 BCNMI section 2606. So there's been a lot of discussion about barriers and using plexiglass and things like that that are not allowed, but just recently, within the last day or two, there has been a little bit of change in what can be allowed. But that was just within the last day or two. So that's a new change. So again, we see changes and updates, if not daily, weekly, not only in regards to Department of Health or CDC, but also even when you look at facility maintenance and what's required or not required, or what we can use and not use. Throughout the buildings, there will be signage and reminders for all to see. We will limit the number of visitors to all of our buildings. If you need to come to the building, you need to make a prior arrangement. We want a safe environment for all of our students and staff. So, when our students and our staff are here, visitors will be at a minimum to come into the building. And if they are allowed to come into the building, then they have to follow the questionnaire, and they have to have their temperature taken. Buildings will be clearly marked for entrance and exit, hand washing reminders, and social distancing guidelines. So throughout the building, students are going to know with these reminders and signs, so they'll always see that visibly, plus they'll hear it in conversation. Visitors, again, per the Center for Disease Control guidelines, all visitors will be required to complete a brief health questionnaire and have their temperature taken prior to being allowed in the building. In regards to transportation, it's extremely important that the parents and guardians take their children's temperature before they come to school, whether you're driving them or they are riding the school bus. Again, this was a strong recommendation from the guidance that the first line of defense is we want it home. So if your child is sick, and you're checking the signs and you're checking your child's temperature, then they need to stay home. And it's the same with our staff. If our staff is not feeling well and they answer yes to one of those 4 questions and they had a fever of 100 degrees or higher, then they must stay home. COVID-19 symptoms per guidance documents. If a student or staff has an unexplained symptom, they must stay home from school. Our buses will be disinfected after each run with special attention to frequently touched areas. Limited drop-off. This is something that we need to really focus on. With the number of students who are on a bus, we need to really pay close attention of the bus changes. So this year, we would really like the cooperation of everyone in regards to bus changes as far as the dismissal, because many times we get last minute changes, and the problem with that is let's say bus 68 has 22 students on it, and we received 4-8 phone calls to transfer to bus 68, and then that would cause an issue. So we really need parents to help us in this area in regards to the pickup and drop-off locations, and that would help us out immensely. And also in our survey, many of the parents said that they would be able to drop off or pick up their children. So we will solidify that information again to send to you to really have a commitment to say if you are able to drop off and pick up your children, which in many of our buildings, we do have parents pick up and drop off their building. I know I'm in this building, and I see a lot of parents on a daily basis that come in. So in the survey, many parents did say that they were going to transport their children. So again, we'll solidify that information as best we can for you to make a commitment in regards to transportation. All students and staff must wear a mask at all times on a school bus. This follows the mandatory guidelines. The results of the survey showed that many parents, again, would be able to transport their children. Due to state restrictions, all students and employees will wear their mask on the bus. In order to properly maintain social distancing, school buses will have a decreased capacity. So again, thank you to the parents who have said that you would be able to transport. And any student who is symptomatic, if your child is presenting any unexplained symptoms, please keep them home. And again, the first line of defense would be at home. One of the other topics that we had to address in the reopening plan was child nutrition. Meals will be provided for students. When students are scheduled to be in school, the eligible free and reduced participants will receive the next day's meal to go home with them. Other students can also obviously purchase meals. This is different from the spring when the school buildings closed, when anyone under the age of 18 at home was eligible for breakfast and lunch. So that has changed. And so now, if you have the free or reduced lunch and you're in school on Monday, then you can bring home that the next day for Tuesday. So meals will be provided for both in-person and remote learners. Students will have access to meals. However, families that are not eligible for the federal free and reduced lunch program will be charged for meals as they were previously. The hybrid learners, families can choose to take the meal home from the cafeteria for the remote learning day. So the next day you'll be able to have that meal. And remote learners, families choosing to join the meal program would pick up their meals at the building where they live near. And then the questions regarding the meal program, you get that in your information for coming back to school. And also you can contact our cafeteria manager in regards to more information. But that information will be coming out in the information you get for the back to school packet. The other topic that was addressed, digital equity and access. A lot of rural areas, including us, have some issues with connecting to the internet. Having a strong internet connection has been an issue for many families. The district has purchased hotspots for those students who may need them. Parents will need to contact the school building where their child attends for detailed information in regards to that. All hybrid and remote students will be offered a mobile device to use to support their learning. The internet and access and hotspots. To enable student success with remote learning, the district will be purchasing the hotspots These hotspots will only be given to households with unreliable internet or limited data, and will only work with a school-provided device. And again, in the survey, in the second survey follow-up, many of you addressed whether or not a hotspot would work in your area. So we broke it down into, do you have internet? Do you have reliable internet? Do you have data? And then if you were able to have a hotspot, would that work for your location? In regards to no internet access for hybrid and remote students without consistent and reliable internet and live in an area where a hotspot will not work, the district will provide alternate means to ensure the students have necessary instructional materials, including Chromebook storage and USB drives and of that sort for those individuals. In regards to teaching and learning, the district will utilize a combination of strategies to support remote learners, off days, and 100% remote virtual, including but not limited to daily check-ins and postings in Google Classroom, recorded instructional videos, and accompanying assignments, live video instruction, communication with students via email and phone calls. And again, in the guidance, to provide a program that includes a regular interaction between teachers and students, regardless of the instructional mode. Remote learning activities will include video activities and different other tools such as ExactPath, IXL, Nearpod, and other platforms that students would be able to use. At this time, students will be on an alternating daily schedule that will allow for our social distancing, as was put out in previous documentation. There would be two groups of students, those with the last names A through L and those with M through Z, on an alternating schedule. Our CTE, occupational education students who go to BOCES and are in those programs, and they have to meet hourly requirements in some of those programs, will be attending their programs at the Glenfield site every day. And students with disabilities schedule will vary based on services and programs, and information from that area would be from the special education department. Those students. So there was a guidance saying that students about coming back, students with disabilities, CTE students as individuals who should be coming back on a more consistent basis. So they kind of gave guidance on those individuals who are coming back. In continuation with teaching and learning instruction, all students will receive instruction in the core content areas as well as art, music, library, physical education, and electives. In the fine arts, the district realizes the importance of all instructional areas. We want to continue to offer our students as many opportunities as possible while at school. Social distance will be further emphasized in these areas as the requirements require 12 feet of distance for some of these areas. In physical education, staying active is a very important part of our everyday life. Students will be afforded the opportunity to participate in activities where social distancing is followed of 12 feet. The physical education teachers have worked on plans on how this could be established. And again, in some of the information from the surveys from parents, they wanted to have their children have as much of the school experience as possible in regards to some of the course offerings and specials that the school district offers. And so we feel that that's a very important part of the children's school day. As much as it's not normal and what we're going through, we're trying to, when the students come back, to have a day that would seem somewhat like their schedule. Even though it's not, we want them to experience some of the things that they would normally experience in their school day. On a student's remote day, it is expected they would log into their Google Classroom. Attendance will be taken on a daily basis by logging into class, completing an assignment, or meeting with a teacher at a scheduled time or office hours. In regards to grading, as school reopens in the fall, the district will move to a more traditional grading model. This will remain in effect even if the district is required to full remote learning for any period of time. So In the whirlwind that we experienced in the spring, we discussed in what ways would be available for students in their grades. And there was a lot of ways to come up with a way that was fair and equitable for all students. And now that we've experienced that, and now we're going into our new school year, we feel that we should go back into more of what would look like a traditional grading system for our students, because we've got some safety nets in place in regards to internet connectivity, getting the hot spots. Now, we know that it may not be for 100%, but we're still working on that. But we know there's probably over 100 families that are going to benefit from the hot spot, if not more. So that is a step in the right direction for those individuals who are connecting via the internet. In a remote learning activity will occur, whether it's Google Meet and some of those other learning platforms, a learning website, IXL, or Nearpod, which is interactive lessons, or ExactPath, which is an academic growth goals for students in grades K-12, and offering some other opportunities for them. On the next page just shows what a schedule would look like for students in our school following a every other day schedule, and just really showing the first couple months, and then that would follow through. One of the biggest things that was talked about when the guidance and everything came out was the social and emotional well-being of our students and staff, and that is a high priority. Instruction obviously is very important. It's up there at the top, but also the social and emotional well-being of our students and our staff. Our counselors are prepared to assist our students and families in multiple ways. We will spend time reconnecting with our students and staff. We've been away from each other for several months and need to reconnect with our students. Our students need to reconnect with each other. So the beginning of the school year is about building those relationships and making those connections again with our students. As much as we'd like to hit the ground running, we need to have individuals come back in our buildings and reconnect with each other, with their teachers. And that is going to be first and foremost of our transition back into our school year. It's a very high priority for school districts. In addition, education and safety and well-being of our students and staff will also focus on supporting students and staff's mental health through the coming months. We know this has been a difficult time for many students. You may contact your child's principal or counselor if your child is needing counseling services. And in the spring, what we did with the counselors, they had school cell phones, and we're able to stay in contact with their students in our school, those that they see regularly or on a schedule, and those students who just wanted to make a connection with a counselor or an individual. So we did offer that from March until June, and so people did reach out to our counselors. Not only the students that they were seeing, but other students who reached out to them, which we thought was really good. Counselors will have surveys for our students and staff throughout the school year, and they'll be going to the classroom. So what they want to do the first couple weeks of school is talk with the students, talk with the staff, and get a feel for how they are doing and where they're at. So that would be accomplished through some of the surveys that they'll put out to students and staff. In regards to athletics and extracurricular activities, at this time we don't have a definitive answer about whether there'll be sports in the fall. In regards to extracurricular activities, we would like to offer our students as many opportunities as possible, but it may look a little different. We are thinking of some inventive ways where students can come together, even if virtual, can connect with one another, giving them another opportunity, not only doing their schoolwork, but in another lighthearted way, making some connections. So the administration has reached out to the advisors to come up with some ideas and solutions for coming up with some inventive ways to reconnect with students, because again, this piggybacks right on the social and emotional well-being of our students, and it's a vital part of some of our students' everyday school activities, being a part of extracurricular or in their involvement in athletics, if that happens to come this fall. As of now, per state guidance, at this point, they are not permitted, the athletics. Interscholastic sports have been delayed till September 21st, and additional information will be provided when it becomes available. So whether or not we're going to have sports in the fall is yet to be determined. I mean, you see a lot of things being canceled, and so again, it's like day to day, week to week, you see changes and updates, but right now, the tentative date was September 21st. And again, as I mentioned, extracurricular activities, we're looking at ways with the advisors to come up with some solutions to how students might be able to participate. In regards to some of our avenues of making connections, we have a school messenger system, which you hear me generally when I'm closing school, and a robocall. Parent Square, a new communication app rolling out this year for Adirondack, and like I mentioned at the beginning, we are working with the vendors, getting emails within the last week, with setting up, making transition into our, and getting that ready. Our ACS website, which is always accessible there with the email address. We have a Facebook page that is used very, very often, Twitter, and an email address specifically for reopening questions, which was on the survey and on our website, ACS Reopening at adirondackcsd.org. So we have questions for reopening, send them there, and then we respond to those questions that come in. The next steps for parents, expect a letter arriving soon that will include information about your children's anticipated fall reopening of school. Again, we'll really solidify about the transportation and the modes of learning for your child or your children in regards to coming to school or remote. At this time, again, families who choose a hybrid or remote will notify the district if they need a home hotspot for internet connectivity. Again, Parent Square will launch when school opens. You'll be required to do a daily health screening with this app, which is a first line of defense. Posted, the governor had put out information in regards to, I said, what's going to be put on our website for parents. Instead of going through these documents, just sifting out some information. Also meeting with faculty and staff and the community at large. So tomorrow we have a meeting scheduled with our faculty and staff, and then we will have meetings scheduled with community Thursday, August 13th at 2 and 6, email questions. So there will be a form that's on our website, so you can put in your questions to that. So that would give us a head start on answering your questions or looking into your questions. And also, some of you have already used our email address for the reopening. So we've already received questions and responded and answered some of the questions that were on the reopening email address. And then on Tuesday, August 18th at 10 a.m., again, email your questions. We try to do some different times because of work schedules. If there's a need to continue, we will do that. We'll answer all of our questions the best we can with the latest information that we have, and then we'll go from there. Right now, we cannot have, large group gatherings, so it'd be much better if we could just, meet at places. We could do small groups. But again, it would have to be like a sign-up situation because you can't have a lot of group gatherings, a large group gathering. So what is required in the document is to have some sort of forum where parents can send in questions. The thing with when you have, like, say, a Google Meet, it allows up to 250 people. The problem is, I've been on some Google Meets where there's 25 people and you can't even, it doesn't work well because of the microphones and all that. So in many, there's either chat or you send in your questions and you can get those answered. And again, you can call your child's building main office and talk with the individuals in those buildings, the principal. You can call my office in the district office here and answer questions or send us an email. All of the emails are on our district website, So you can also send us emails at our district website, or go through this email address for ACS reopening. All school reopening plans are subject to change depending on the Department of Health, Center for Disease Control, the State Education Department, and if we get any new directives from the governor. As I mentioned before, these plans will be updated in regards to the changes. They're a fluid document. There will be updates. I know we will have changes just because that's the way this has happened since school was let out in March. So there will be some updates that'll be coming. Again, if you have any questions, please email us. In addition, again, you can contact the main offices of the building where your child attends or the district office. And send in your questions to our email address, and we will be prepared to answer those questions on the parent community forum days and evenings.
Need a drink?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Met with them, and then today I was at Glenfield BOCES because of Lewis County, and our West Leyden is in Lewis County, so I met with the health director there and a doctor from Lowell Hospital and county planner. So we had a 2-hour discussion today from 10 to 12 in regards to reopening schools and protocols and procedures. So we do have something that we received from Oneida County in regards to the other requirements that were required from the governor when he decided to open schools. So again, I said those will be posted this week with the 3 areas that we need to post on. And I think we'll continue to get updates from the Department of Health. So that's a strong connection that we need to make and keep, obviously, with this pandemic. So what will be posted on our website, remote learning, explanation again about remote learning. So specifically the 3 things that will be a shortened version of the plan. Reopening learning, we'll discuss that, pull some of that from the plan, and then add whatever else, the information that was in the updated requirement. Protocol for testing, which I'll get from the Oneida County Health Department, and contact tracing, which I will also get from the Oneida County Health Department. So the testing and contact tracing, I will have that information from them to post, and the remote learning is internally and how we're doing that. So those 3 areas will be posted, and then, like I said, the other requirements where faculty and staff meets, which that one is tomorrow at 1, and then 3 for community, and those we posted on here just now, and they'll be on the webpage and Facebook page. So those were the latest requirements that we have to do.
Any other questions for Ed? Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for a couple of personnel issues.
I'll move for approval.
Second? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so we are back from executive session. I'd like to call the regular meeting to order. And I would just like to make two short president moment comments. First of all, it's not board business, but congratulations to Shane and his new bride. And so we are back from executive session. I'd like to call. I learned where you was. And second, just a summary or a comment from Mr. Niznik's comments about reopening for the public as well as the board members. You've got to believe that we all are aware of the risk factors of bringing back our kids. We know what we have to do, but you've got to be totally assured that the school, the administrators, the faculty, and I will include parents in that, are doing everything that's reasonably possible in an attempt to minimize these risks. So if ever we were going to work as a community, this is the time we need to be doing it. So let's stay on a positive note. Were there any comments that were sent in for public forum? Okay, let's move right on to the consent agenda. 1 and 2, approval of minutes and some teaching and non-teaching substitute positions. Motion by Bruce,
Second.
second by Joan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I did get to see Wendy Keithis Jones this morning. Just couldn't stay away. She had to come in and say hello. She's looking great, relaxed, and I told her it was just a big misunderstanding. Here are the keys to the building. We're voting to have it. Nothing against. No.
Wow.
You were there too. Okay. There is a correction to item 4, which is one of our resignations. The effective date for Celeste Zwicky is August 12th. So at this time, I would like we could lump 3, 4, 5 together.
So moved.
Motion, Mark.
Second?
Second, Bruce. Any discussion? An ELA teacher, a newly hired ELA teacher has found another job. Our science teacher is staying home with family. Celeste Zwicky, after 32 years with the district, and Elaine Mahaffey, a library aide, 27 years with the district. I know those are tough decisions, but these are tough times and everyone has different priorities and focuses in life. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I would just like to congratulate Celeste on her retirement. I mean, I know a little Spanish. Hola, ¿cómo está? I know a few numbers. Uno, dos, tres. But anyway, I've enjoyed working with Celeste through the years. I've known her for years. I had her children in school. Worked with her when I was a high school principal. So I wish her many happy years of retirement. I'm sure Ed's to-do list will get longer. And also Elaine Mahaffey, congratulations on her retirement. I also had the opportunity to work with Elaine when I was also in the high school. And so I wish Elaine many happy years of retirement also. Enjoy yourself, and we will miss you.
Okay, number 6 is actually an appointment for the ELA position that we had the resignation. Number 3, we were able to secure a contract with Veronica Vetchik. Does that sound like I may have said it right?
Mhm.
Yes, no.
For the high school ELA. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mandy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 7, 8. A couple of these positions with custodian, if you recall, there were some retirements that we have filled, and Cameron's thinking ahead also for our custodial needs. And the webmasters. Is there a motion? Andy? Is there a second? Doug? Any discussion?
I have to, the step for Joel Clark needs to be changed to a step 3. It says step 1, but that should be a step 3.
Grade 16, step
Step three.
3. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 9 is recommendation to create with civil service a position of building maintenance mechanic. We submit this request to civil service for their approval.
Move for approval.
Motion by Bruce, second. Mark, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So let's do, okay, 10. We'll do these separately.
I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Yeah.
Just a comment. I think in light of the COVID pandemic and its potential impact on state aid down the road, and then also on the impact on school costs and local businesses and local workers, I just wanted, on these two contracts, I'm going to vote no on those, so.
Any other discussion, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Carried. 11. Motion.
Move for approval.
Bruce. Second.
Second.
Mandy. And so noted on the comment. Any other comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Carried. 12, 13. 12 and 13. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Bruce? Doug? Any comments?
Yeah, just a quick question there. Can we just make sure all the contact information has been updated with some of the moves that have been made for the code of conducts?
So noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of school, the Board of Education adopt the 2020-2021 tax levy in the amount of $10,255,016.
I'll move for approval.
Motion by Bruce,
Second.
seconded by Bart. Any comment?
I do have a comment.
Yep.
I think, I was looking at this earlier.
The spreadsheet?
Yeah, and there's a tremendous difference between some of the townships in terms of the amount of increase, right? So the increase to the levy was, the tax cap was 3.3%. But the majority of the townships, like for instance, town of Boonville pays 44.6% of the tax levy. And they saw a 1.6% increase based off from how the equalization rates shake out. Now, in contrast to that, Lewis County, or Lewis, the town of Lewis, pays 10.5% of the tax levy, which is still a good portion. Those folks are gonna see an 18.5% increase in their school taxes. So I think, I'm not sure if we've ever put this spreadsheet or a condensed version of this spreadsheet in the paper or made it available to the public on the website, but I think, you know, if I were in the town of Lewis and I was hearing a 3.3% increase in taxes and I got my tax bill in September, I would be saying, whoa, what is going on, right? So I think from my perspective, it'd be nice to provide this information and some comments on what causes that those big fluctuations in the change of what they pay.
Though not school related,
It's not school related, and oftentimes it's township.
township, yeah.
It's
Right.
equalization.
Right.
Basically, it has to do with the assessed value compared to full value.
Yeah.
But I think if there's something we could do to communicate that and educate that, I think it might be a good time to do that.
Yeah, looking at the bottom, the bottom line is not always a good explanation.
Right.
There needs to be some, and there's probably not in this case, a town supervisor that feels real comfortable making that explanation.
Or if you ever want to be the supervisor again.
That's true, yeah.
Well, your shift,
It,
last year, town of Lewis had an E grade of 106% because of, I assume, the litigation with Boyd Dam. They, for some reason, took it out this year, so this year the equalization rate is 91%. That's a big shift in a $70 million assessment equalization.
What was the equalization,
It was 106.
the rate? Oh, wow.
Because at that point,
They thought,
the state, that's a state equalization rate saying that the township as a whole is overassessed. So they rectified that. I don't know why they dropped it so fast and hard, but the year before, I think it was in the 90s. Hold on. No, the year before it was in 110. So for 2 years, they had it up over 100, but for some reason they dropped it down to 91. So I don't know what's going on up there. That the E grade's what sent it up and over.
but
It's an issue.
point well
I can do
taken
that.
that.
I can do that,
It
though.
still warrants,
Because I think, you know.
if we can't run away from it,
Exactly, and it's reality, and, you know, I think the general perception is everyone in Adirondack is expecting to see a 3.3% increase in their tax bill this year. And that's not gonna be the case. The majority are gonna see 1.63%. That's
Yeah.
kind of the magic number, that the
Yeah.
vast majority of our taxpayers are gonna see a 1.63% increase in their taxes. But there's gonna be a few townships that are gonna have some really serious questions as far as why their taxes went up 18.5%. And I think if we could get out in front of that, that would be a good thing.
I can do that. I will certainly do that.
thank you. Did we vote on that?
Yes.
15, 16, 17. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Doug, motion, a second. Mark, any discussion? And that contract became part of the safety plan, right? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The various warrants and receipts are in our packets for our perusal. Any other business that we,
Is there a way, Sharon, that we can, as we progress into the school year, and it's more informational than anything, for the budget cycle for next year, but is there a way we could track additional expenses associated with the conditions we're operating in right now? In other words, this is what our normal expenses would be, but because we're only allowed 22 kids on a bus, we're anticipating.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can do that?
Yes.
And then maybe have a report out on it, just a brief report out on it at the monthly meeting to say, this has been the impact on our budget so far this year as a result of the environment that.
probably at some time you're going to be required to do that.
Well, that's part of, we can get reimbursed for some of that in the CARES Act. So I do have like the costs that we've spent thus far on the masks and other PPE and cleaning supplies that we've bought, which we can certainly, I have that list.
Yeah, if we could just make that just a quick
Yeah.
report at the beginning of each meeting.
COVID cost report. Yep.
Anything else? This time I would entertain motion to go back into executive session for some contract information or discussion in personnel issue.
Move for approval.
Bruce, is there a second? Mark, all in favor? Opposed, carried.
We'll be back.